Hello, my bookish friends. Welcome or welcome back. I'm Elizabeth, and this is Reading Riley, where we like to read Riley, not take ourselves too seriously, and have some fun with books. Today, we're going to be talking about new release thrillers. Thrillers that are coming out in June, July, August. And then I think I have like 2 in September. So summer-ish. But before I get started... Really? Curly hair problems. Okay. Before I get going here, if you are interested in videos like this, in
thrillers and books, in fantasy, romance sometimes, speculative stuff, having conversations,
go ahead and click that subscribe button. We have a few thriller releases that are coming out on June 8th. So let's get started with that. The first of which is called I Don't Forgive You by Angie Bloom Thompson. I believe this is her debut novel. This is about a woman named Allie Ross. She is a photographer and a boy mom. Her and her family are moving to the suburbs of DC, and I'm getting like a Big Little Lies vibe from this because it's like there's a lot of talk about her wanting to fit in with the moms in this kind of like mommy competition, like who can be the best mommy type of vibe. She moves to this new town, and while they're at a kind of community get-together, one of the other dads approaches her and he calls her by a nickname that she hasn't used in many moons. We're getting some kind of secret past thing going on here. Anyway, the next day, this dad that approached her and called her that name turns up dead. Turns out that she's being framed for his murder. There's been some kind of secret Tinder conversations between her and this dad that they found that somebody was impersonating her. Nobody's trusting her. Her husband is doubting her. And she has to delve back into her secret past to figure out who it is that's trying to destroy her name. Sounds good to me. The next book I have is called A Dark and Secret Place, and this is by Jen Williams. This also comes out on June 8th. We're following Heather Evans. She is returning to her hometown after her mother has completed suicide. She finds these like well-preserved stacks of letters. It's a correspondence between her mother and a serial killer who's been in jail for 20 years. His name is Michael Reeve, and he has been dubbed by the press to be called the Red Wolf. He is in prison for killing young women in a series of ritualistic murders where he's dismembering their bodies, and he has a very specific MO. He puts them inside of a tree and plants flowers around them. I don't know. It's weird shit.
I'm into it.
For this time that he's been in jail, he's claimed his innocence. They find another body fitting the same MO. Heather is getting caught up in all of this because it's somehow connected to her mother's suicide, and so she begins investigating what's going on. Why did her mother commit suicide? Is this guy innocent or not? It's giving me Dark Places vibes. It's giving me Silence of the Lambs vibes. She ends up having to go confront the serial killer and basically interview him, which is why I say Silence of the Lambs. Very intrigued in this. Jen Williams, I've never read a novel by her before, so we'll see how that one is. The next book on June 8th that's coming out is called The Disappearing Act, and this is by Catherine Steadman. Okay, so Catherine Steadman apparently is an actress and an author, or it plays into this book because we're following British actress Mia Elliott, and she says that she's had many starring roles in the UK in costume dramas. I'm guessing these are like period pieces, like Downton Abbey type stuff. She wants to move to LA and get in on this like hustle and bustle of Hollywood, and so she comes to LA and she's going to try to make a name for herself in America. And she's been doing this like back-to-back auditioning, and she's stressed out. She feels like a duck out of water, fish out of water. She meets Emily, who she finds to be like her kindred spirit. She's relatable, she's friendly, she's so sweet. And they spend one day together getting to know each other, and she finally feels like she is not alone in this new country. Then the next day, Emily comes over and knocks on her door. Mia opens the door, and it's not Emily, but it's someone who's pretending to be Emily. and thinking she won't notice, or I don't know. She's trying to figure out, is this a scam? Is she crazy? So we have a potential unreliable narrator, and apparently she has to risk the role of a lifetime in order to get down to the nitty-gritty bottom of what the hell happened to Emily. And the blurb says, in a city where dreams really do come true, how far would you go to make the unreal real? Sounds interesting to me. Next, I have on June 15th, one of my most anticipated books of this year, and one that I have pre-ordered, which is The Maidens by Michael, The Maidens by, not Michael, Alex Michaelides. This story is a dark academia. We're at Cambridge University and we're following Edward Fosca, who's this handsome, charismatic professor of Greek tragedy. I'm getting like Ted Bundy vibes from him already. We're also following Mariana Andros. She graduated from Cambridge and she is a quote-unquote troubled group therapist. Apparently there's this group of this like secret society at Cambridge, and they are called the Maidens, and they are particularly obsessed with Professor Fosca. Someone dies. One of these girls in the Maidens ends up dead. Mariana thinks it's Fosca. She thinks that there's this weird situation between the girls and this professor, and he keeps talking about Persephone and her like path towards something or other. I don't know. Mariana thinks she's onto him. She's getting deeper and deeper into this, and she's trying to investigate on her own. And I think she has to risk her livelihood and her job in order to find out the truth. And knowing Alex Michaelides, it's going to be super twisty and it's going to be shocking and amazing. And this is one of the only ways that I'm willing to get into this Greek tragedy or Greek mythology trend is in this aspect. For some reason, I'm just not into that stuff, but this I'm excited for. On June 22nd, What's Done in Darkness by Laura McHugh. So we're following Sarah Beth. She is 17 years old and her family moves into Arkansas, into this remote farmstead in the Ozarks. Sarah Beth has become increasingly rebellious since they've moved here because her parents have become increasingly religious or puritanic, or I don't even know. But they want her to wear long dresses. They want her to grow her hair long. They have these very strict rules. It's giving me very much culty vibes. One morning, a masked man comes and snatches her away. They find her a week later on the side of the highway, bloodied up, still alive, but obviously she's been through a trauma. So her family, after she gets back from this, they look at her like she's tainted, like she asked for it. So I'm guessing we're gonna get some kind of rape culture commentary in here, which I love, if it's the conversation I wanted to be having about it. Her family thinks that she's disgusting now, like that she's been tainted. They don't want anything to do with her, so they let her leave. 5 years later, she's left. She started her own life away from this craziness. She gets approached by an investigator named Nick Farrow. He calls her for her help. Apparently, another girl has gone missing under similar circumstances, and Sarah Beth must go back to the hills and the hollers of home to face her estranged family and her deepest fears. Sounds good. And the next book I want to talk about is another one of my most anticipated books, which I'm sure it is for many, and that comes out on July 6th, and it is Survive the Night by Riley Sager. So this is set in November of 1991. George H.W. Bush is president. Nirvana is playing in the tape deck. We are following Charlie, who is a movie-obsessed college student, and she is in a car driving home to Ohio with a guy who might be a serial killer. Charlie's best friend was the third victim of this serial killer that they're calling the campus killer. She is trying to go back home to Ohio because of everything that's going on. So she puts a note up on a message board, and who answers but Josh Baxter, who also needs to go home to Ohio to take care of his sick father. It's set in the 90s, so we don't have cell phones, so this is very important to the plot, I'm sure. It's also stressed that Charlie watches a lot of movies. I'm guessing she's like a horror movie buff or something. So we're going to think, well, is it in her head or is it not? My guess is it's not in her head. Honestly, what's the likelihood that he's not the serial killer? He is. Otherwise, what would this book be about? Oh no, I got home fine. See you later. Hey mom, hey dad. It should be fun. I'm excited for this. All right, the next book comes out on July 13th, and this is The Final Girls Support Group by Grady Hendrix. Now, Grady Hendrix has written a lot of books that look really interesting to me, but I haven't read any of his books yet. I don't know where it is, but I just got the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, and that's going to be my first like vampire-y foray, so I'm kind of excited for that. But this one also looks really great. If you don't know what a final girl is, it's a common trope in horror, and it's at the end of some traumatic experience where there's one girl left standing. That's a final girl. Okay, so we're following Lynette Tarkington, and she is a real-life final girl. She survived a massacre 22 years ago and has defined every day of her life since then. Ooh, okay. So Lynette hosts this group therapy for other actual final girls, and I think there's 5 of them. They've been getting together for years, I think, and discussing this, helping each other out and, you know, trying to get past their trauma until one day one of these girls disappears. She doesn't show up. And so Lynette realizes that their worst fears have come true. Someone has discovered what they're doing, what they are, and has decided to kill all of them. But we have all final girls. They've all already been through this before. They're smart, they're fierce, and they're not giving up without a damn fight. This sounds good. Very similar to sounding to Riley Sager's Final Girl. So we'll have to see which one's better. The Final Girl competition. This next book I want to talk about also comes out on July 13th, and it is called The Therapist. This is by B.A. Paris. I have kind of a love-hate relationship with B.A. Paris. She's written one of my favorite thrillers, Behind Closed Doors. Loved this domestic thriller. And then she's written some books that I really didn't care for. So I'm very interested to see if this one's going to be another great one. We're following Alice and Leo, and they're just moved into a newly renovated house in this quiet cul-de-sac. It's their dream house. It's everything they've ever wanted. Alice is getting to know the neighbors, and they're getting to know that the community, her and her husband. She starts to hear secrets about this people that lived in this house before them. And the woman's name was Nina, and she was a therapist. She becomes a little bit obsessed with trying to figure out what happened. All of the neighbors are being super cagey about it and really weird. And so she goes down this rabbit hole of trying to figure out what's going on. This is a psychological thriller, domestic thriller. It's going to be twisty and turny, hopefully, and I think there probably is some kind of unreliable narrator aspect, potentially, or at least the like push and pull of is it not, which I love that. This house holds a shocking secret, and I want to know what it is. All right, our next book that I want to mention is Such a Quiet Place by Megan Miranda. And this also comes out on July 13th. So Megan Miranda, I have marked several of her books as want to read. She's a very well-known thriller author. I have not read anything from her yet, so maybe this will be the first one and I'll go from there. But I know some people love her thrillers, so it's definitely something I want to explore. Anyway, this is called Such a Quiet Place. We are following Ruby Fletcher. Ruby used to live in this little community called Hollow's Edge. This is another domestic psychological thriller. It's this private, idyllic neighborhood where the community all talks to each other. They're all friendly. It's just a very nice, quaint town. A year and a half ago, 2 of their community members, Brandon and Fiona Truitt, were apparently murdered. Everyone in this town had to testify about what happened, and Ruby went to jail for it. But then her sentence was overturned, and now we're a year and a half later. She's coming back to this town. She's going back to the house that she lived in before with her other roommate, Harper Nash. So Harper Nash always has looked at Ruby as kind of a wayward younger sister, and she doesn't feel like she can turn Ruby out. She feels weird, but Ruby comes back and she comes stomping into this town, and she said she's claiming her innocence. Look, I didn't do it. It's been overturned. And then she starts trying to figure out what happened at the trial and figuring out that maybe some of these community members that testified, maybe they weren't quite telling the truth. Sounds very interesting. I'm getting a Good Girl's Guide to Murder type of vibe from this, where she's going back and reinvestigating this and trying to figure out what is actually the truth and how it went wrong type of deal. Sounds really interesting to me, and I'm excited to read this. Okay, the next book is being released on July 20th, and this is another one of my really anticipated books, and that is For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing. She is the author of My Lovely Wife, which I really loved. A great thriller, so recommend that as well. So I'm looking forward to this next book that she's got coming out. And this is set at a prestigious private school. We have interfering parents, we have rebellious students, rich kids that are kind of stuck up and snobby, and we have this teacher named Teddy Crutcher. He's won Teacher of the Year. He is very proud of this school, and he wants to teach the children to just be the best that they can be. No one's seen his wife in a little while, and then there's a death of a parent of one of the kids at school that is seemingly starting to look like a murder, and he can't be bothered with this. There's a student that starts digging a little bit too deep into Teddy's personal life, and he's not having it, and he's just focusing on these kids' academic potential. All he wants for these meddling parents and these other teachers and this kid is to stay out of his way, let him continue on his goal for excellence for the school and for his children, but sometimes excellence comes at a very high cost. This sounds really good. I'm into it. All right, this next one, I've never heard of this author, Rob Rufus. It's called Paradise, West Virginia. Oh, wow. Okay, he's got Die Young With Me, a memoir. Oh, God. And The Vinyl Underground, published last year. Oh, wow. Okay, I haven't heard of this guy. His other two books have really good reviews, or at least high stars on Goodreads. Interesting. So this one I'm so excited for because it's another podcast thriller, which I love. We're in a poor, small West Virginia town that has been decimated by the opioid epidemic. We're following two teenagers, Henry and Jane, and they've had a little bit harder than most because their father is in prison after being convicted as a serial killer known as the Blind Spot Slasher. They've been bullied and ostracized because of this, but they believe that he's innocent. A popular true crime podcast is coming to town to investigate this. Meanwhile, we have a young officer, Lieutenant Elena Garcia, and she is put on the case of a missing girl. She's had warnings from her superiors to kind of let it go. A lot of the deaths are being quickly labeled as overdoses, or there's no human involved. Lieutenant Garcia is suspicious of this. She thinks that this is creating a kind of perfect loophole for a copycat killer to come in and thrive. But is it a copycat killer, or did they never actually catch the actual killer? Then we have an amateur private investigator, and this is Henry's friend Otis. He's a homeschooled genius. He's got his own family issues, but he's also got the suspicion that their father is innocent. So he makes it his mission to help Henry and Jane solve this case. And as they delve deeper into this, they discover a connection between these murders and a doomsday snake-handling cult.
So we have cults, we have podcasts, we have murders, we have potentially innocent people in prison. We have young lieutenant that's gonna pave the path.
This has everything. I couldn't ask for anything more, so I'm super stoked about this. And the cover is freaking gorgeous. And this cult is very interesting. It's gonna be good. I just know it is. This next one I'm so excited for. This is called The Bullet Train. And this is by Kotaro Isaka. It's translated by Sam Melissa. Apparently, this was first released in Japan in 2010 and has become like this hit sensation. And now the translation is being released. I'm just gonna kind of relax if you guys don't mind. So the translation's being released on August 3rd. It looks amazing. We're following 5 different killers. They find themselves on the same bullet train from Tokyo, competing for a suitcase full of money. Who will make it to the last station? This is said to be an original and propulsive thriller. So Satoshi looks like an innocent schoolboy, but he's really a viciously cunning psychopath. Ooh, yes, I love a psychopath. Kimura's young son is in a coma thanks to him, and Kimura has tracked him onto the bullet train headed for headed from Tokyo to Morioka to exact his revenge. Okay, so Kimura's following Satoshi. But Kimura soon discovers that they are not the only dangerous passengers on board. Nanao, I'm sorry if I mispronounced any of these. Nanao, the self-proclaimed unluckiest assassin in the world, and the deadly partnership of Tangerine and Lemon, oh my god, I love that their names are Tangerine and Lemon, are also traveling to Morioka. A suitcase full of money leads others to show their hands. But why are they all on the same train? And who will get off alive at the last station? So I'm guessing someone has set up all of these people, and it's going to be like a kind of like a Saw situation, maybe not as gruesome, but they're killing each other off. So it's like a greater good type of thing. I am guessing. I don't know, but it sounds so good. Yes! Okay, this next one I'm really excited for too. This is The Family Plot by Megan Collins. I have not read anything by this author either. Oh my god, it sounds so good. So this is about a family, and this eccentric family that is obsessed with true crime. Yes! Thank you for this book. I think this is going to be a better version of If I Disappeared. And I think we're going to get a lot of commentary on this true crime obsession, which is what I've been looking for. So we're following Dahlia Lighthouse, and she grew up on a secluded island mansion with a family obsessed with true crime. And because her parents were obsessed with true crimes, all of her siblings have this weird obsession as well. Not weird, but their obsession is reflected in their strange habits. I guess her brother Charlie puts his energy into this like family memorial museum. Her sister Tate is obsessed with making popular dioramas that portray like murder scenes. Anyway, when she was 16, her twin brother Andy went missing. Nobody ever found out what happened to him. In current day, her father has passed away, the patriarch of the family. He's passed away, and they're all gathering to bury his body in their family plot on this island. Come to find out, they go to put him in the ground, and there's another body in there. And that body is that of her brother, who was murdered with an axe in his skull. So she tries to find out what actually happened to her brother, and she comes to find out that all of the research that she's looking for to find out what actually happened to her twin brother can all be found right back at home in this mansion on this island. And so it's
family secrets, it's true crime obsessed, it's all the things I'm looking for.
Cannot wait to read this book, and this comes out August 17th. Super excited. This next book is coming out August 19th. And this one is called The Couple at Number 9. This is by Claire Douglas, another author that I don't know. This sounds really interesting. So there's this couple. We have pregnant Saffron Cutler and her boyfriend Tom. They're moving into 9 Skeleton Place, and they're about to make some renovations. And the last things they expect to find are bodies buried under the house or in the basement or somewhere, right? So they find these 2 bodies. The police are like,
don't worry about it. These bodies have been here for like 30 years. It's whatever.
Like, don't concern yourself with this. As the police start to investigate what happened 30 years prior, we find that Saffron's grandmother actually owned this place before. She is now aging, suffering with Alzheimer's, and has very little memory of what actually happened. They're questioning Rose, her grandmother. She's increasingly confused, and she can't help the police, but it's clear she remembers something. But why? What happened? Why did nobody miss these people for 30 years? What is going on? What part did her grandmother play? And is Safi in danger now? She starts to feel like she's being watched at this house and something sinister is going on. That's all I know. Can't wait. Sounds great. The next book that I'm very excited and highly anticipating is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. Alice Feeney is an English author. I have read a couple of her books. Sometimes I Lie and His and Hers. His and Hers I read. It was the first book I read in 2021, and I loved it. Loved them both. And this is another domestic thriller. We're following Adam and Amelia Wright. Something's been going wrong with their marriage for a long time, and they win this trip to Scotland, like a free vacation to Scotland. They think this is going to be exactly what our marriage needs. We're going to go take this. We're going to spend time with each other and fall back in love and all of these things. Adam is a screenwriter and a workaholic. Oh, I forgot about this. So Adam is a screenwriter and he has suffered with something that's a little bit strange. He has face blindness. He suffered with this his entire life. He can't distinguish between faces, which is really interesting. I've never heard of this. He can't recognize his friends, his family, or his own wife. Every anniversary, the couple exchange traditional gifts, paper, cotton, pottery, all the things, tin. And each year, Adam's wife writes him a letter that she never lets him read until now. They both know this weekend will make or break their marriage, but they didn't randomly win this trip. One of them is lying, and someone doesn't want them to live happily ever after. Ha! It says 10 years of marriage, 10 years of secrets, and an anniversary they will never forget. It's gonna be good. It just is. It's gonna be great. This next one, this also comes out on August 19th, and it's called 56 Days. It's by Catherine Ryan Howard, another author I don't know. This is about the panorama, okay? It's about COVID. It's very new. This is gonna be very interesting because it's very much something we've all been going through since all of this has started and changed our lives. So 56 days ago, we have Sierra and Oliver, and they met in a line at the grocery store in Dublin. This is the same week that COVID-19 reaches Irish shores. 35 days ago, when lockdown threatened to keep them apart, Oliver suggests that Sierra move in with him. They see this unique opportunity for this new relationship for them to be able to flourish without the pressures and the scrutiny of their family and friends, and they're just going to take advantage of lockdown. Then today, detectives arrive at Oliver's apartment to discover a decomposing body. And they have to put together what happened, who died, which one of them died, which one was not the person that they were claiming to be when they first met. What are the dangers of putting yourself in this position with this whole pandemic going on? So that just kind of propels the story, gives them the motivation to be together and move in together in this crazy time. And then some shit went down. They did not know each other, and one of them's dead and decomposing in this house. Yes, please. This next one comes out on August 31st. It is called A Slow Fire Burning by Miss Paula Hawkins. We're following 3 different women. We have Laura, Miriam, and Carla. Laura has spent most of her life being judged. She's an outcast. She's hot-tempered. She's troubled. Some might call her dangerous. We have Miriam. Miriam knows that just because Laura is witnessed leaving the scene of a horrific murder with blood on her clothes, that doesn't mean she's the killer. Miriam's the eternal optimist, apparently. Bitter experience has taught her how easy it is to get caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Let me ask you, Miriam, how many times have you left the scene of a murder bloody and were not involved in that? Miriam sounds a little bit naive, if you ask me. Then we have Carla, who's reeling from the brutal murder of her nephew. She trusts no one. Good people are capable of terrible deeds, she thinks, but how far will she go to find peace? Innocent or guilty, every single one of them is damaged. Some are damaged enough to kill. Now, just based on this, I'm gonna guess that Laura was not the killer because I assume off the bat she did it. But something tells me this story is going to weave into places that are at this point unknown to me, and it sounds very interesting. All right, I have 2 more books for you, and both of these are coming out in August, in September. But I wanted to include them because they sounded so good. Okay, so the first one is Never Saw Me Coming by Vera Kurian, and this comes out September 7th. So we're following Chloe Sevra. She's a freshman honor student, hot girl next door, but she also is a psychopath. She loves yoga lattes, she loves frat parties, but she also likes plotting to kill Will Bachman, who is her childhood friend who grievously wronged her. She's one of 7 students at her DC college who are part of an unusual clinical study for psychopaths. So there's 7 kids, they're in a study. They're all psychopaths. How amazing does that sound? A fucking group of psychopaths. This idea is brilliant. They're all students like her who lack empathy and can't comprehend emotions like fear or guilt. This study is led by this renowned psychologist, and he requires them to wear smart watches, and it's going to track their moods and their movements. One of the students in the study is found murdered in the psychology building, okay? And this dangerous game of cat and mouse begins. Chloe goes from hunter to prey. She is in this race to identify the killer and put in her plan of action. And she'll be forced to decide if she can trust any of these other psychopaths. I think this is going to be kind of like a closed circle mystery where like one of these psychopaths killed another psychopath. Like, one of them's guilty. I don't think she is, or at least they're not leading you to believe that she is. It says that, it says, Never Saw Me Coming is a compulsive, voice-driven thriller by an exciting new voice in fiction that will keep you pinned to the page and rooting for a would-be killer. I mean, come on. Lastly, I have one more for you. This one comes out September 14th, and it's called Dark Things I Adore by Katie Latari. This is a debut thriller. It says it's for fans of Lucy Foley and Liz Moore, and it says it's Gone Girl-esque. It's a tale of revenge. So off the bat, I'm here for it. Like, that's all I need to know, really, but I'm going to tell you a little bit more. So we're following a dual timeline. We have 1988, where a group of outcasts gather at a small, prestigious arts camp. It's nestled in the woods of Maine, and they're the painters. So this group of painters, they're bright, they're hopeful, they're teeming with potential. They gather around this campfire and they start telling secrets. It says 3 campfire secrets, 2 witnesses, 1 dead in the woods, and the woman 30 years later bent on making the guilty finally pay. Then, 2018, we're in the next timeline. We're following an esteemed professor, Max Durant. He arrives at his protege's remote home to view her graduate thesis collection of art. She's a painter. He knows that Audra is beautiful and brilliant, and he knows that being invited into her private space is rare, and so he thinks of this as a very rare gift. But what he doesn't know is that Audra has engineered every aspect of this weekend, every detail and every conversation, and she has woven the perfect web for revenge. Only Audra knows what happened in that summer in 1988 and Max's secret and the dark things that followed. And even though it won't be easy, Audra knows that someone must pay. It says the searing psychological thriller of trauma, dark academia, complicity, and revenge. It unravels the realities behind campfire legends, the horrors that happen in the dark, the girls who become cautionary tales, and the guilty who go unpunished until now. And that's it, guys. Those are all of the upcoming thriller releases that I'm looking forward to this summer and beyond. I can't wait. Hopefully you found some new books here. If you know of any other good thrillers that are being released in this time period, absolutely let me know. Love a good thriller, obviously. I'm kind of leaning into this thriller thing recently because I guess that's just been what I've been wanting to read. You know, at some point I eventually will get back into more fantasies, more romance, but for now, I'm just like, this is what I'm feeling like reading, so this is what I'm talking about. Anyway, I appreciate you if you're still with me. Thank you for hanging out with me. If you liked this video, consider subscribing. And that's it. I will see you guys next time. Until then, don't forget that life is short, so read Riley. Cheers.